again dedicate the shiur to a refuah shalema for Charlie Yechezkel Yehuda Ben Yenta, who's not very well, back in hospital, I'm afraid. And also Clive Abram Yeshua Ben Sarah, who I went to see on Sunday, and he's doing a lot better, thank God. So
and Yosef Pinchas the Ben Sarah Root, who's I think also doing a bit better.
Good to hear. Okay, we want to hear good news like that. Right. We ended off last week's shiur. We were talking about the piece in the Mishnah, and we had a question that Julia got the correct question. We'll see what the answer is now. Let's go to the Mishnah straight away. It's on page 9 in the Steinsaltz. If you're following in the Steinsaltz, it's on 2A in the Art Scroll or the Vilna Shas. And the Mishnah said, Haza'ev v'ha'ari hadov v'hanamer v'habardalas v'hanachash. The wolf, the lion, the bear, the leopard, the cheetah, and the snake, mitatan be'esrim u'shlosha, they are put to death only after a court of 23 judges. Rabbi Eliezer said, Kol hakodem lahorgan zacha. Anybody who gets up and kills them, they merit. And we spoke last week about what they merit. One opinion was that they merited the skins of the animals, and the other opinion that they could not merit the skins because these were owned animals, not hefker animals, and they merited a mitzvah according to that person. And then the Mishnah says, Rabbi Akiva Omer, mitatan be'esrim u'shlosha. Rabbi Akiva says their death is with 23 judges. And the question that I asked was, what's wrong with that? And Julia said, well, Rabbi Akiva is saying the same as the first opinion, the Tana Kama, the first Tana. The first Tana said, mitatan be'esrim u'shlosha. Rabbi Akiva Omer, mitatan be'esrim u'shlosha. Their death is with 23. So we were left with two possibilities. Either Rabbi Akiva is the Tana Kama. If so, why didn't it say so? Or there is something different about Rabbi Akiva's opinion that we have to work out, because the Mishnah would not waste its precious words. Remember, the Mishnah was shorthand. The Mishnah was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi writing down shorthand what the halacha was. He wouldn't waste words saying that Rabbi Akiva agreed with the Tana Kama. He would just say Rabbi Akiva Omer, and that would be the end of it. So there are those two possibilities. Either Rabbi Akiva is the Tana Kama, or he has to say something slightly different, and we need to know what that is. That's the Mishnah, and that's what the Gemarah is now going to discuss. Let's go to our Gemarah. We're on 15b 3 if you're in the Art Scroll, and I think it's 80 on the Steinsaltz. No, it might be 81. It is 81. There we go. Here we go. There it is. Page 81 if you're in the Steinsaltz. Rabbi Akiva Omer v'chule. Rabbi Akiva says, etc. And once again, the Gemara expects us to know what Rabbi Akiva said. We know what Rabbi Akiva said because we've just seen it in the Mishnah. Rabbi Akiva says that their death is with 23. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva, Hainu Tanakama. Well, hang on a minute. That's what the Tanakama says. That means Rabbi Akiva, his opinion is identical to the Tanakama, and that can't be, says the Gemara. Answers the Gemara, Ika bainaihu. There is a difference between them. There is a difference between them, and the difference between them is Nachash, the snake. Okay, the snake is the difference. So what does it mean by that? It means that according to the Tanna Kama, all of those animals, here we've got them over here. The Gemara quotes them a little bit earlier on. These animals here, there's the wolf. Where are we? Here we go. The wolf, the lion. Let's see if I can remember them without looking them up. The wolf, the lion, the bear, the leopard, the cheetah, and the snake. That's it. According to the Tanna Kama, all of them, mitatan they need 23 judges. Rabbi Akiva, on the other hand, when he says these, their death is by 23, he excludes the snake. Where does it say that, says Julia? It doesn't. You're quite right. But the Gemara is making an assumption, and I'll tell you why in a sec. The Gemara is making an assumption that there is a difference. And that's a reasonable assumption because, as we just explained, Rabbi Akiva would not just agree with the Tanna Kama. There must be a difference. So why has the Gemara plumped for the snake as opposed to anything else as the difference? Why wasn't it not the wolf or the lion or the bear or the cheetah or the leopard? Why the snake? Anybody want to suggest a reason why the snake should be the one that Rabbi Akiva says you can kill outright without a 23-man court? Anyone want to suggest a reason? Johnny?
Is it something to do with Adam and Eve with the snake?
It might be. Because the snake, remember it may well be. That's a very interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. But let's go to Sefer Bereshit. Let's go to Sefer Bereshit and see. I didn't think of that, Johnny, but I've just thought of a reason why you might be right. Let's go to Sefer Bereshit. Let me find it, and then I'll show it you on the screen. Where is the snake?
There's also a snake with
chapter 4 of Bereshit. Let's put it on the screen for you. Let me see if I can find it quickly. Bereshit, chapter 4.
There's also a snake with Pharaoh as well, I suppose.
Okay, there's chapter 4. Let's put you on the screen. Let's share it with you. There is chapter 4 of Bereshit. Oh no, I think we might be in chapter 3. Yeah. Hang on, just find this.
By the way, isn't the snake the only one that isn't a mammal? That's a cold-blooded reptile.
So you're right, it is, isn't it? Ze'ev, the wolf, the lion, the bear, the leopard, the cheetah, and the snake. It is the only one. You're quite right. You're quite right. It is. We're in chapter 3. So maybe that's got something to do with it. Here's chapter 3. Yes, Jeffrey?
But it wasn't a snake. It was a serpent.
Okay. Well,
and I seem to recollect, because the serpent led Adam and Eve astray, it was doomed to be just slither on the ground. In other words, I think the serpent had legs and snakes don't have legs. It was punished because it led Adam and Eve. So it's a different animal than what's in Bereshit.
It's not a different animal because look at, I've got Bereshit on the screen now. Can you see it? Have a look at verse 14. You're quite right, Jeffrey, that it's described here as a serpent. But look at the Hebrew word, nachash. It's the same word that we're talking about in the Gemarah, nachash. Snake, serpent, whatever we describe it as, it's the same animal. You are quite right, Jeffrey, that it did have legs. Look at verse 14. Read it for us, Jeffrey.
And the Lord God said to the serpent, because you have done this, cursed be you more than all the cattle, and more than all the beasts of the fields. You shall walk on your belly, and you shall eat dust all the days of your life.
So there you are. That's your point, that you shall walk on your belly. He got his legs chopped off. He was initially some kind of, I don't know, dinosaur-like creature
Lizard.
with legs.
Lizard type.
But this is the point that I think that Johnny meant, whether he meant it or it was just there deep in the lurking in the subconscious, I don't know. But this is what it says. Look at this verse. It's really interesting, Johnny. God said to the serpent, because you did this, arur ata mikol habehema umikol chayat hasadeh. You are more cursed than anything else, any other animal, including the chayat hasadeh. What are chayat hasadeh? Chayat hasadeh are the wild animals. What are the wild animals? The wolf, the lion, the bear, the cheetah, the leopard. You are more cursed than all of those. And so, therefore, it's right, says Johnny, that the nachash, the serpent or snake, or whatever you want to describe this animal, should be the one which Rabbi Akiva says does not get the, privilege of a 23-man court. You can just go and kill it. And I will go further than that, Johnny, and I will say that verse 15 is also a clue and as proof for what we are suggesting Rabbi Akiva's opinion might have been. Jeffrey, verse 15 for us, please.
And I shall place hatred between you and between the woman, and between your seed and between her seed. He will crush your head, and you will bite his heel.
So there you can see, right from day, well, I was going to say day one, but it wasn't day one, was it? It was about day 8. It may even have been day 6, actually. There's an opinion that says they were kicked out of Gan Eden before Shabbat. So if that was the case, then this was still day 6. So from day 6, if we like, there was this animosity, this hatred between man and snake. He will crush your head and you will bite his heel. It stands therefore to reason that if Rabbi Akiva is going to exclude one of those animals from the privilege of a 23-man trial, 23-judge trial, then it would be the snake. So I think that you are absolutely right, Johnny. I think Sharon is correct as well to say that that the snake is a different class of animal. It's the only one that isn't a mammal. It's a reptile. So we have that very clearly here. That's very, very good.
But what were
it's
you
not
going
what the Gemarah
to say?
says, actually. But I'm definitely buying all of that. I think that's excellent. That could go in Chidushei Poleg when it gets written. So let's have a look and see what the Gemarah says. Now, actually, what I'm going to take you to now is not back to our Gemarah. I'm going to take you to another Gemarah. I'm going to take you to Bava Kama. Bava Kama. Page 15b, and I have it ready for you on the screen. If my computer will whir into action, there it is. It's just loading. Okay. Now, this is a Gemarah which speaks a bit about the same subject as we were talking about before. And it's talking, it begins with the concept of the goring ox. Okay? Now, we know, don't we, from our Gemarah, that an ox which has gored in the past is liable to the death penalty if it does it again. And we did it before, didn't we? We said right at the beginning of our Mishnah, 23 judges, and we had a whole discussion about whether the owner can get out of his death penalty because he hasn't looked after this ox that has been forewarned, etc. So that's what it kills a person. Now, what this Gemarah is talking about are the damages payable when an ox damages property of somebody else. It doesn't kill them, but it damages their property or their person. And the halacha is this, basic halacha is this. A first-time offender, an ox which damages as a first-time offense, the owner has to pay half damages. Okay, so if he damages 100 shekels worth of property, the halacha is on a first-time offender, he has to pay half damages. An ox which is called mu'ad, an ox that has form, he's been warned from the word aid, right? Witness, his testimony. We have testimony that he is an agora, and he does it again, then the owner has to pay full whack because he should have looked after the animal more carefully. He can't say this was an accident. I didn't know it was going to happen. He is called mu'ad, forewarned. Now, there are certain things that are so obviously likely to happen that animals are considered to be forewarned even from the start when they are first-time offenders. So, and this is what this Mishnah is talking about. Okay. So, for example, if you have an animal, let's say an ox, and you put it in the field of somebody else, and it eats the produce in that field, you can't turn around and say, "Oh, that's a surprise. He's never done that before," because it's obvious, isn't it? You put an ox in a field, he's going to eat. That's what they do. So as far as damage done, what is called shane, damage by shane. What's a shane?
Tooth.
A tooth. Yeah, not the Yiddish shane, which means beautiful. Okay. Shane the tooth. Any damage done by the tooth, for example, is considered to be mu'ad, forewarned. Now, why am I telling you all of that? Because you will see the Mishnah that I'm going to show you now, if I can find it. Here, look at this here. Look at this Mishnah. Okay, that's what I told you there was for a domestic animal. What about wild animals? This is the Mishnah now in Bava Kama. Recognize those animals? Those are exactly the same animals that our Mishnah was talking about and our Gemarah was talking about. The wolf, the lion, the bear, the leopard, the cheetah, and the nachash, the snake or serpent. Hare elu mu'adin. These are considered forewarned, even if they've never done any previous damage. Why? Because they're wild animals, and that's what wild animals do. You can't turn around and be, as an owner of a wild animal, and be surprised that it does these things, because that's in their nature. That's what they do. So they are considered to be forewarned. And what does that mean? What does that mean? It means that the first time that they damage, the owner has to pay full damages, not half damages, as he would with a domesticated animal. Okay, that's the Tana Kama. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, recognize him? He's also from our Mishnah. What did our Mishnah say? Rabbi Eliezer was the one that says, you don't have to have 23 judges for them. You can just get up and kill them. And if you do, you merit something, either the skins or a mitzvah, depending on which opinion you take. So same Rabbi Eliezer. And you can imagine, can't you, that the discussion on went on between these rabbis in Bava Kama was probably taking place at exactly the same time as the discussion around Sanhedrin. It just so happens that when Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Rabbi Judah the Prince, put together the Mishnah, he separated these opinions, not because they took place, these discussions at a separate time, but because he separated them in by category. Here it was talking about damages, and in Sanhedrin he was talking about dinei mamonot b'shlosha, how many judges you need for this, that, and the other. But the discussion must have taken place at the same time. We have the same people, the Tanna Kama, who's usually Rebbe Meir, Rebbe Eliezer, and we will see our Mishnah adds in Rabbi Akiva as well. But it's the same animals and the same people. So this discussion that is I'm showing you now in Bava Kama is must have been, in my humble opinion, the going on at the same time as the discussion that went on around Sanhedrin. And what did they say? Rabbi Eliezer said, wait a minute, Bisman shehein b'nei tarbut. Okay, remember we had that idea. If you're talking about tamed or domesticated wild animals, so in other words, you have a pet lion, which you have tamed, you've domesticated it. It's just like your pet dog now. You have a lion and you put a lead on it and you take it out for a walk or whatever. If it has been domesticated, said Rabbi Eliezer, einan muadin, it's not considered forewarned for everything, and it then is in the category of a domesticated animal, so that if it does damage the first time, the owner would only pay half damages. That's Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. The Tanna Kama says, no way. They are all considered forewarned. It's in their nature. You can't domesticate them properly. You can't tame them. They're all considered forewarned from the start. Yes, Jeffrey.
I'm not quite following the meaning of forewarned. You mean the owner is forewarned?
Yes. The owner is considered to have been warned.
Right.
The animal is considered to have had form.
Yeah.
What does it mean when you've got form? It means that you're likely to do it because you've done it once before. So being forewarned from the start means that we accept it's in your nature. You can't help it, right? You know, if you're a ganef, you're a ganef. Can't help it, right? If you're a lion, you can't help attacking people. That's what you do. It's part of your nature. So forewarned means that it's considered as if he's done it before, and the owner is under notice. Look after your animal because he has a nature to do this bad thing. Okay. Now,
but isn't Rabbi Eliezer's position contradictory between the two? Yes.
Yeah, Rabbi Eliezer in our Mishnah seems to be taking a much more stringent approach, and he's the one that says, just get up and kill the blooming things. Don't put them in a court. And here he says, well, if you do domesticate them, then they're not considered forewarned. You're absolutely right, Julia. I also noticed that a contradiction between Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. And I'll tell you what I think is possibly the answer here. I think that the discussion in our Mishnah came first because our Mishnah talks about the possibility of domesticating animals. If you remember, there was Rabbi Gemarah Sanhedrin, and I can't remember who other, we'll have a look when we go back to our Gemara, who were discussing whether this opinion of Rabbi Eliezer of getting up and killing them applied to them bichlal, generally, or only if they weren't domesticated. So I think that this second Mishnah, I'm calling it the second Mishnah, Bava Kama, the discussion, although it was contemporaneous, came after the Sanhedrin discussion, and Rabbi Eliezer now says, it's Elazar actually, not Rabbi Eliezer.
I was going to say, there's a Elazar and Eliezer.
Okay, so I'm talking rubbish, they're two different people. But nevertheless,
I'm saying they're two different ones.
If it were the same person, I've got an answer. And the answer is that it took place afterwards, and he would consider that there is a possibility that there is one can tame these animals. You're quite right. I've only just noticed that as well. So I was talking rubbish about it being the same people, but nevertheless the same animals, and I still think the conversation was going on at the same time. So,
Johnny,
yes.
may I ask why they only, for the domesticated animals, had you paying half on the first bite, for example, of a dog? Why should the victim of that bite have to bear any of the expense because of Julia's wild dog that bit me?
Yeah. Okay. So that's how that's the discussion in the Gemarah, or in Bava Kama, when we actually, if we will, it's before this. It's earlier on in Bava Kama, the discussion about how much they have to pay, and the two sides are the side that you have just put forward, Larry, which is the innocent victim shouldn't have to pay anything. And the other side of the argument is that the owner could not predict that this would happen, and therefore he is not liable for full damages, and he's only liable for half damages because it was not predictable that it could do it. Whereas once it's done it once before, it is predictable that he'd do it, and therefore he has to pay the whole damages. There may well be, I don't know, there may well be some kind of communal compensation pot, a bit like in the UK. There is the what's it called, the MIB, the Motor Insurer Bureau. If in the UK, I don't know what it's like in the US, but if in the UK you have a car accident, then the person who's done the damage, he has to pay up, or his insurers have to pay up. In the UK, if there is an uninsured driver that does the damage, and that driver doesn't have any means to pay up, then there is a fund called the Motor Insurers Bureau. The insurers all put in to this pot a certain amount of money, and the innocent victim, whose fault it isn't, gets paid out from the pot of the Motor Insurers Bureau if there is no insurer to pay up in an uninsured driver's case. Now, it may well be that in the situation that we have here, whereby this is a bit similar, that the owner's not fully liable because it was not predictable that this dog would bite or what have you, but nevertheless the victim is innocent, so the owner will pay up half, and it may well be that the other half is paid up by a pot. If I was making the halacha, that's what I would do, from a communal pot. But your question is a very valid question, Larry, and that's the best answer that I can give you, and I don't even know if it's true.
Just to note, the US has the same kind of uninsured motorist protection. If someone does not have, it drives without insurance.
Good. Okay, that's good to know that we have social conscience in our laws in the US and in the UK. That's good. Okay, so the important part of this Mishnah that I wanted to show you. Why have I shown you this Mishnah? I've shown you this Mishnah because of the last three words: v'hanachash mu'ad liolam. The snake or the serpent is considered forewarned whether it is domesticated or not. We have this opinion of Rabbi Elazar here, who says that if you tame any of these animals, then they're not considered forewarned. They're considered like domesticated animals, except for the snake. The snake is in a different category. The snake is always considered forewarned. Okay, now that is the source for Rabbi Akiva's opinion, that for our Gemarah's opinion about what Rabbi Akiva's difference is between our Tanakama and himself. That there must be something different between Rabbi Akiva's opinion and the Tanakama, otherwise it wouldn't be there. And our Gemarah says, let's go back to our Gemarah now. Let's go back to our Gemarah. There it is. So our Gemarah says that Ikebainaihu Nachash. Rabbi Akiva holds that all domesticated and undomesticated animals other than snakes are included in this requirement. So that's the difference between him and the Tanakama. The Tanakama says they all, including snakes, require a 23-man panel. The opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, not Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Eliezer, is that whoever gets up and kills them has done a good thing. And Rabbi Akiva is somewhere in between. He says they all need 23 judges except for a snake, and a snake is anybody's game. You just get up and kill the snake, you've done a good thing. Zacha, you have merited. Either you merit the skin and you make yourself a nice pair of shoes, or you merit a mitzvah, depending on the opinion that you take. So I think that the idea that the snake is separate is in Bava Kama. We're not quoting the Bereshit. I think it's going purely on the fact that snakes are considered to be permanently dangerous animals and are impossible. It's impossible to tame and domesticate them, which is interesting, isn't it? Because we do know that there are snake charmers, all those thingies, and we've all seen them. So I'm going to suggest that the rabbis in Bava Kama adopt Johnny Halpin's opinion, and that the reason that the snake is excluded from this category is because of what we learned in chapter 3 of Bereshit, that the snake is cursed over all other animals. More than anything else, it's cursed, and there will always be this this enmity, this never-ending enmity between snakes and humans. Humans will try and crush their head, and snakes will try and bite their heel. There will always be this battle between them. So that's a very nice piece of Gemarah there, which took us back right to the beginning of Bereshit. Thank you for that, Johnny. Okay, let's move on to the next little S symbol, which is telling us we're starting a new little subject, but we're still in our Mishnah, and we're still talking about how many judges are needed for what. So as we've explained many, many times now, the Gemarah doesn't tell us what it's talking about. All it says is Ein Danin. We do not judge. Okay, well, that doesn't help us at all. We have to go back to the Mishnah, back on page 9 of the Steinsaltz, to see what we're talking about. And here it is. By the way, there's a nice picture of a polecat. What's a polecat? Apparently a bardalus is, according to some opinions, is a polecat, not a cheetah. Some people identify this bardalus as a polecat. Some identify it with a cheetah. I've always translated bardalus as a cheetah, but here there's a picture of a polecat. You can see polecats, by the way, in Poleg and Iriamim very commonly. If you look at the corner of Shosh Atari and Ehud Manor, the roundabout where there's the piano, not the piano shopping mall, the piano picture. Then what do they call it?
The statue.
The piano statue. You know, the roundabout with the piano.
The piano sculpture that looks like Liberace.
Yes, that's the one. Sculpture. That's the word I was thinking of. I couldn't think of the word. That roundabout there. Okay. Between that and the Briga buildings, there is a piece of wasteland at the moment. And next to that little wasteland is some scrubland. And behind the scrubland are some caravans and what have you, and little porta cabins where workers live there. In that wasteland and in that scrubland, in those bushes there are lots of polecats, and they can be seen quite regularly. There is this lovely lady called Lily, who I'm sure you've all seen, who feeds the cats. And she comes every morning and she feeds the stray dog, the old stray dog that you'll all have seen there, called Billy. That dog's called Billy, and she feeds him by hand, and she feeds all the cats. Now, she's usually out around about 6:30 to 7 o'clock in the morning. If you'll see her, she puts out the cat food, and you will see when she puts out the cat food, there's a whole bunch of polecats come out as well. Of those things, and they look just like this little picture on the screen now, and that is a bardalas. There's a hyena. What's that got to do with it? I don't know, but there's some cheetahs hunting. But anyway, one opinion is that this bardalas is a polecat. I don't know whether there were cheetahs. I don't know whether there were cheetahs in Eretz Yisrael at any time. There definitely were wolves, there definitely were lions, and there definitely were leopards and bears. So if, I don't know, I'm going to have to ask Rabbi Natan Slifkin this question.
Ask Natan Slifkin.
Yeah, he will know. If there were cheetahs in Eretz Yisrael 1,500 years ago, then a bardalas could well be a cheetah. If not, then a bardalas is probably a polecat. So there you are. That's interesting. Julia, you wanted to say something?
It says that the bardalas may also be a hyena.
Oh, is that what it says there?
Yes.
Okay, so that's why we've got a picture of a hyena. Hyenas are horrible animals. They are very fearsome. I came face to face with a hyena when I did a safari in South Africa a few years ago. It was really quite unpleasant to see this snarling thing not very many meters away. Fortunately, we had excellent trackers who knew exactly what we were doing. We also, by the way, were no more than 15 to 20 meters from a lion, a huge lion that roared in front of us. I have never heard anything as loud in my life. Except possibly a pop concert. It was really, really impressive and really quite something. There is a bracha when you see such an amazing experience, and this was such an amazing experience that we all said this bracha, which is Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, blessed are you God, the melech haolam, the King of the world, oseh ma'aseh bereshit, who is the one who made creations. So we recognize when we see some amazing experience, whether it be Victoria Falls, which is another thing I saw on that same trip, and we could say that bracha as well, any of these sort of 7 wonders of the world kind of thing, or any amazing experience, we recognize that these things were made by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and there is a special bracha to say, to recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu's.
Say that for lightning as well, Johnny.
Sorry, Johnny?
Say that bracha for lightning.
You do indeed. You do indeed say the same bracha for lightning, yeah. Lightning is not such an unusual experience, of course, for us, is it? I mean, certainly not over the last few days. Anyway, that's very interesting that a bardalas may well be a polecat. And if you want to see one, have a look around about 6:45 tomorrow morning on that land next to the Briga South Tower, and you will see some polecats. Right, let's go on to the next piece of Mishnah. Here is the Mishnah. Ein danin lo et hashevet v'lo et nevi hasheker v'lo et kohen gadol ela al pi beit din shel shivim ve'echad. We're working our way up the severity of the cases. We're working our way up the court ladder, if you like. The previous cases we were dealing with was a 23-man court. Prior to that, we talked about those cases that needed 7 judges or 5 judges or 3 judges. We're now dealing with 71 judges. Of course, in the middle of that, we had Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov, who wanted the whole bang lot, 71 judges, king and Kohen Gadol, but he was a separate opinion. We're now moving up to the opinion of the Mishnah that says, what kind of things do we need for 71 judges? What kind of cases do they deal with, the 71 judges of the Sanhedrin? And this is a constructed sentence which we've had before. I'll just remind you of it. It's an Ein Ella sentence. Ein Ella means do not only, which means these things are only judged by 71 judges. In other words, these cannot be dealt with. These cases cannot be dealt with in anything else other than 71 judge court. And what are they? Hashevet, the tribe. It doesn't say what this tribe has done at this point to need judging, and that's what our Gemarah is going to talk about. I'll go back to the Gemarah in a minute, but let's just look at this piece of Mishnah, because it's 2.5 years since 3.5 years since we looked at this particular part of the Mishnah. So the tribe that did something wrong, Navi HaSheker, the false prophet, and the Gemarah is going to tell us later on what is a false prophet. Kohen Gadol, the high priest. Well, what's he done wrong? We don't know. We're going to find that out as well later on. All of these things can only be judged by a bet din of 71 judges. Okay, that's the piece of Mishnah that we are going to look at now in the Gemarah. We go back to the Gemarah, page 81, or page 15b3. There it is. Ein danin, etc., chula, etc. So the first part was shevet, the tribe. So the Gemarah asks the question, Hai shevet dechata b'mai, this tribe which has sinned, what did it sin with to warrant 71 judges? And of course, what is going to be the outcome of this case if they are found guilty of this sin? So, b'mai, the Gemarah says, what is the Mishnah referring to? Again, recall that the Mishnah is shorthand. It's an aid memoir so that we don't forget the halacha. It was written around about 180 to 200 of the Common Era. 250 to 300 years later, the Gemarah comes along, and the aid memoir wasn't good enough to remind us properly of what the halacha was. And the Gemarah is now discussing what was it that the Mishnah was trying to remind us of by this shorthand. It's a bit like me when I do my lectures on medical ethics, and I get out my notes from the first time that I ever did these lectures on medical ethics, which was 32 years ago. First of all, I can't read what I've written, but the bits that I can read don't make a lot of sense, because they were just notes that I made for me to give my lecture. I didn't write them out word for word. They were just sort of headings so that I would know where I was going next with the talk. And that's just after 30 years. So imagine somebody coming along and looking at my notes 250 years later, they would really have difficulty understanding what I was getting at. And that is what the whole Gemarah really is all about. The whole Gemarah is about deciphering what Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi meant when he gave us these headings in the Mishnah. And so when he says, we only judge a tribe with 71 judges, the rabbis of the Gemarah are saying, well, what was he talking about? What's this tribe done to merit, not merit, that's not the right word, to warrant a trial of 71 judges? So the Gemarah now puts forward a few suggestions as to what it might be that this tribe has done wrong. Okay, so the Gemara has a hypothesis. Ilema, whenever you see the word ilema, which means if you want to say, it usually means this is going to be a hypothesis that I'm now later going to destroy. So it's usually, ilema is usually an introduction of a thought process, which is not going to end up being the bottom line.
Perhaps we use the translator as in no, perhaps.
Yeah, okay, perhaps, yeah, perhaps, and then the answer to the perhaps is no, it isn't. Okay, so it's the same idea. So how does he translate here? He says, if we say ilema, I was always taught it, if you want to say, if you're going to say such and such and such and such, well, I will say X, Y, Z to counteract that. So ilema, if you want to say, we're talking about a shevet, a tribe, shechilel et ha-Shabbat, which was Machalel Shabbat. It profaned the Shabbat. It didn't keep Shabbat. It broke one of the 39 Av Malachot, one of the 39 principal work actions that are not permitted on Shabbat. If you'll tell me that's what they did wrong and they need to be judged by 71 judges, Amar, we have a saying, it has been said, the Paleg Rachmana Bein Yechidim Limerubin Li'inyan Avodat Kochavim. It has been said, the Paleg, there's that word Poleg again. What does it mean? We've had it many, many times before.
Stream.
Jeffrey?
Stream.
It is a stream. What does a stream do?
Runs.
What does it do to the two sides between it?
It washes it.
It divides it. It divides it. Okay, that's why paleg means to argue or to make a distinction, to divide, to make a here it makes a distinction. The paleg rachmana. We've had rachmana before. What's rachmana?
Merciful.
The merciful one, i.e.
Rahman.
So Hashem or the Torah, Rachmana is also another name for the Torah. Okay, so the Torah makes a distinction. Paleg Rachmana. The Torah makes a distinction bein yechidim with regard between individuals. Yechidim, a yachid is an individual. You can see the word echad in there. One, an individual. Limerubin. What word can you see in the middle of that?
Rabbah.
Rabbah or harbeh, a lot. So the Torah makes a distinction between individuals and many people, the public, the whole shevet, as opposed to an individual. Le'inyan, with regard to the subject of avodat kochavim. What's that?
Worshipping the stars.
Worshipping the stars, or another way we would normally say it, idol worship. Okay? Avodat kochavim is another way of saying idol worship. So the Torah makes a distinction between the punishment for an individual and for a public avodah zarah, idol worship. Okay? There is a distinction between an individual who does avodah zarah and a tribe or a group of people that does avodah zarah. Bish'ar mitzvot, however, the rest of the mitzvot, paleg, do we say that the Torah makes a distinction? Can't be. There is no distinction, says the Gemara, in the Torah between an individual and a group of people with any halacha except idol worship. Ergo, what must this Mishnah, when it says that a tribe is judged by 71 judges. What sin must it be? Must be idol worship. Can't be anything else, says the Gemarah, because that's the only thing that it could be, because the Torah does not make a distinction between individuals and multitudes of people, except with the sin of idol worship. Ella, therefore, rather, it has to be b'shevet shehudach. Hudach. I'll show you that word in a minute. With the tribe which has, he translates it here as subverted and which engaged in idol worship. Okay, so now we're talking about a whole tribe that did idol worship. Where in history do we see the potential for that whole tribe that did idol worship?
Egel HaZahav.
Oh, that's a good one. The Egel HaZahav. The golden calf. That was even more than one tribe, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was 11 tribes. Okay, all right. Where do we see one tribe who did idol worship, or who looked like they were doing idol worship, and who the rest of the people thought they were doing idol worship? I'll cast your minds back to Sefer Yehoshua, which we learned about 7 years ago.
Judges, yeah.
And the time
Isn't that in the time of the judges?
Well, it was in the time of Yehoshua that I'm thinking of. What happened was, before the time of Yehoshua, they were about to cross the Jordan, and two tribes approached Moshe. Which two tribes? Reuven and Gad.
Reuven.
Yes, Reuven was one and Gad was the other. And they say to Moshe, we don't want to cross the Jordan. We want to have our inheritance on the east side of the Jordan, in what is today Jordan, and some of Syria, known previously as Transjordan. Trans meaning, of course, crossover, other side of the Jordan, Transjordan. So they said, we want to inherit here in Jordan. We don't want to go into Israel proper. And what was Moshe's response? He was not very happy. And he said those famous words, your brothers will go out to war and you'll sit here? No, thank you. And he says, and they say, no, that's not what we meant. What we meant was we will go over. Well, not only will we go over, we will be the vanguard. We will go over first. We'll be at the forefront of the war. And we will not return until the war is over, the conquest is over. And then when the conquest is over, we will return to our land on the east side of the Jordan River. And Moshe said, okay, on that condition, I will allow it. And he then asked half of the tribe of Manasseh to join them. We've spoken about that in the past. Why half of Manasseh? Because half of Manasseh was on the east side, half of the side of Manasseh was on the west side. Moshe wanted that there should not be a Berlin Wall, and that there should not be a tribe that would be separated from another tribe. So by having half of Manasseh on one side and half on the other, it would be a bridge between the two halves of the tribe, and therefore would be a bridge between the Bnei Yisrael, that they wouldn't lose Reuven and Gad, who would be separated from the other tribes. Now, it didn't work, that technique of Moshe. It didn't work because what happened was, these 2.5 tribes, Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh, did indeed go over and fight with their brothers. And how long did the conquest take? How long did it take to conquer?
10 years.
14 years.
14
years. After the battle, they went back across the Jordan. And what was the first thing they did was they set up a altar and a a whole Beit HaMikdash type structure, a whole Mishkan type structure. And the Bnei Israel, the rest of the tribes, thought that they had set up an idol worship thing, that they'd left the fold, as it were. They've crossed back over to the Jordan, and they've set up their own gods here. And they wanted to attack. They wanted to go and kill all of their brothers, civil war, and attack them and destroy them, because the whole two tribes, they thought, had subverted and gone into idol worship. Turns out that they hadn't. They said, no, you've got it all wrong. We're not doing idol worship. This is just that we should have a remembrance of what's going on over the other side, because we're distant from you. So we've just done this as a, if you like, as a reminder of what's going on over the other side. We're not doing idol worship. But they were accused, and it was thought that they were doing idol worship, the whole tribe. And what was the ruling, as it were, or at least this is what went on? They were going to attack them, to destroy them. So this is where a whole tribe has been subverted into potential, at least at that time, of idol worship. There's a little H there, which usually means there's a halacha. There we go. A tribe that was subverted and engaged in idol worship. If an entire tribe engaged in idol worship is judged and sentenced by the great Sanhedrin, consisting of 71 judges. Okay, so I'm going to stop there, because what I've said to you is only the first installment of what this shevet, what this tribe might have done. At the moment, our Gemarah is comfortable in saying it can't be Chilul Shabbat, because we know that the Torah only makes a distinction in the way people are dealt with between individuals and multitudes of people with one concept, and that's idol worship. Therefore, this sin that the tribe did must have been idol worship. Okay, very nice. Only the Gemarah is going to challenge that. And so we will see next time how the Gemarah challenges what appears to be a very solid argument. If you want to test your Gemarah cop, don't look on, but think about what potential and possible challenges the Gemarah might make to this seemingly strong position that it has put itself in at the moment. Don't look on in the Gemarah, and think for yourselves what you might come and challenge the Gemarah with on this particular point. And we will, please God, resume 3 weeks today. 3 weeks today. The next 2 weeks I shall be in Australia, and at 10:15 it will be late in the evening, and I can't guarantee to be free from family duties in Australia. So we will have the next Gemarah share, please God, 3 weeks today, and we'll talk about that. But don't worry, we will remind ourselves of where we're up to. Just for those of you who like to look at, like me, who like to look at the last 5 minutes of the previous shiur, we were today talking about, let's just recap what we did today. We talked about the snake. We talked about how the snake is separate to any other animal. Sharon said that's potentially because it's not a mammal, it's a reptile. Johnny brought for us chapter 3 of Bereshit, where it says that they were cursed more, the snakes were cursed more than any other animal in the world, and also that man and snake will always be forever enemies. And that's why it was separated out as being the most dangerous and the most the animal that had the least privileges, doesn't even get a trial, just killed according to everybody. And then we went on to the shevet, the tribe that has sinned, that needs a 71-man judge, 71 judge court. And at the moment, the Gemarah says, we think it's because they've done idol worship. That's what we did today. Any questions on today's shiur?
Court is now in recess.
The court is now in recess. We will reconvene in 3 weeks' time, please God.
Mazel tov. Hope you have
Thank
a
you very
wonderful
much.
time.
Lovely
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you very
Look,
much.
will you send pictures?
I will send, please God, I will send pictures. Yes.
Yes, please. Okay.
Julia, Linda says yes, please.
Thank you. Safe
Julia.
travels.
Thank you.
Linda said yes,
Thank you very
please.
much. All the best.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Contact. Bye.